Okay, so this week we're going to look at earthquakes. So we're kind of continuing on from our structural geology kind of talk we did last week. And so now we're going to focus, of course, on the brittle deformation. So last week we talked about folds and faults. Obviously, we're going to focus on the faulting, which is what can occur when an earthquake happens. And a lot of times that fault can be seen at the surface if it breaks the surface, but it doesn't always have to make it to the surface. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the PowerPoint in class. If you look at it here on the module on the online content, it's broken into two different videos. So the first one is kind of the basics of earthquakes, like what are they, where do they occur, how do we measure the amount of energy that's released during an earthquake, how do we locate where the earthquake occurred, the epicenter, and things like that. So that's what the first part here is focusing on. In the second part, we'll talk more about the hazards that are associated with that. So we all know that the ground shakes and that can do some damage, but there are other hazards associated with earthquakes that we want to investigate. And that can be determined by where the earthquake occurs, on land or under the ocean basins, can give us some different hazards. So we definitely want to explore that. So we'll certainly take the 2 days, the Monday and Wednesday this week, to kind of go through all that content. And I'll probably show you a few of these, like this video here is illustrating how earthquakes can last for long durations. So we get earthquakes sometimes that last for 30 seconds and some that last for minutes. Why is that? So we'll talk about that in class 2, but you can take a look at that. And in addition, there's some videos that also we'll probably watch in class, and it's related to, experiencing an earthquake, maybe as best as we can do without actually being in one. And some of the hazards, this one called liquefaction, is kind of a unique hazard that, when we talk about, oh, the ground shakes, okay, we can kind of envision that. But liquefaction might be a little weird, but this is a great demonstration that kind of shows you how liquefaction works, which is the idea that solid ground can kind of turn to liquid when the ground shakes. But we're going to cover most of this in class, and so we'll go over some of these videos and, of course, talk about locations where we see earthquakes and things like that. Tie it back to our plate tectonic story, which we know. And then for the stuff that you'll have to do online, of course, there is don't forget, of course, there's the lecture quiz that you can take about the content we'll discuss in class. There is an article quiz to take over the world's largest earthquake ever recorded, so you can read that document. And then there's also a video that you'll look at about the 1964 earthquake that happened in Alaska. It was kind of the first time that the earthquake was connected to this theory of plate tectonics, because in 1964, this is a pretty new idea. And so the geologists that went to investigate what happened during this earthquake kind of had that knowledge, were exposed to that plate tectonic information, and they actually were able to tie that idea to the earthquake and why it happened and why it happened where it did and some of the hazards that occurred. So it was like kind of a groundbreaking earthquake. So you can take a look at that and take the quiz over that. And we'll probably talk a little bit about that in class also. And then for the homework assignment, you just follow the link to the Canvas quiz, which of course is the untimed version, which is how we've been doing some of the homeworks lately. And so there'll just be some additional questions there that you can use the resources from the page or the internet or wherever you're getting your info from class. And then you can answer those questions at your leisure because there's no time limit. And then when, of course, you've completed those and you feel comfortable with your answers, you can just go ahead and hit submit. And for this week in our in-person lab, we're going to actually go outside and do some measurements with our Brunton compasses that we worked on last week and look at some real rocks in the field and try to identify them, make a map and kind of figure out what's going on there. So we'll talk about that on Monday, of course, about exactly what we're going to do. But that's kind of what we're going to handle this week for our earthquake kind of week. And let's see, I think that's about everything. So as always, if you run into some issues, you need to talk to me, please talk to me in class. It's probably the easiest way. But of course, if you're online or you're doing some of the online stuff and we don't have class, you can certainly reach out to me with an email and I'll get back to you and help you out.